Warren, Massachusetts to order. I'd like to make a motion to bring the Board of Health meeting to order, and we're being televised on TV for everyone to know. It's 12:30 on July 18th, 2024. The meeting is now open. We're gonna say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, we made, are we okay?
Recording in progress.
I don't know why this isn't working. How did you get it to last time? I don't know.
Let's take a look. Let's see here.
There's Dan.
Is this thing? And that, the owl's on?
Mm-hmm.
Plugged in, remember?
Mm-hmm. Right? Got it? Okay. Yeah, it's plugged in.
Plugged in.
Want me to unplug and plug it?
Yeah, why don't we try that?
Yeah, do you know how to get that to work?
What's it not doing? It's just not showing the video, so, it's recording, and it allows people to come in, but it's just not showing the video for some reason.
Jim, try a different port. for that.
Yeah, could be a
That's what I
port.
did last time.
Is there another port on this one?
You ready for another reset? Stand by, Jim. You're unplugged.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there's something wrong with the video feed.
Karen, I know there's another button on that thing. Do you know where those buttons? That should be telling us something.
And it's usually like lit up in blue.
That speaker.
I don't know what it's red.
Is there another one on the side there?
push it, shut it off, and try turning it back on. No.
I don't know.
Nothing.
I don't know, but the last time you got it working, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's not giving the video feed. It's recording, it has the audio, but it doesn't have the video feed. I mean,
Sorry, we're not much to look at, so.
I think we can proceed. You just let anybody in that may join, but they just won't see it.
Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chairman, you may just want to say that we're having some technical difficulties that,
Due to technical difficulties, we're having problems with the TV and being broadcasted to you.
well, no, it would be just, the broadcast, the broadcast is working.
Okay, so it's going out over the air? Okay.
Yes, it's just that it was, the video feed for the Zoom, you may just hear audio and no video.
Okay. To all who's listening, you probably only will get audio, no visual,
On the Zoom only.
on the Zoom only. So we're going to open with a discussion with the Board of Health, from the town administrator and, I didn't bring my glasses, and inspection services. Departments, fire, building, electrical, health agent, best practices in addressing problems, properties, and quality of life issues in town. Jim, you want to open up the meeting, please?
Sure. This is meant for more along the lines of a discussion between Board of Health and various town departments. This stemmed from a public speak out portion of the last week's selectmen's meeting, where Dan came and talked to us about some challenges that he is facing with communication between various departments in our inspectional departments, particularly when it comes to problem properties. I know that we've had, throughout the course of the last year or so, several discussions on various problem properties, businesses that are having some challenges meeting some of the thresholds that are required of them to either maintain their licenses or to ensure that they are following the proper inspectional compliances with either fire, building, electrical, health, in those types of areas. I did have a chance briefly to kind of pick some of my colleagues' brains in some of the various communities around Warren, and for the most part, typically the Board of Health's role in this whole process is kind of like a adjudicatory role. And what I mean by that is that you have your inspectional services team that will field complaints, issues, and will report back to the board with its findings. And then the board would ultimately be like a quasi-judicial board where it would make either a recommendation to not renew a license, or may say that further inspections is warranted, or a correction order should be drafted to the individual that are having that problem properties. So typically, the inspectional team would field those concerns, would do those inspections, report back to the board on those inspections, and the board would hear from the inspectional team. They may hear from a resident, they may hear from a property owner, and kind of make a determination between the entities on somewhat of a resolve. I know that we have very limited staff here, being a smaller community, and sometimes our staff has to, get involved a little bit more. So in terms of, some of these issues, it may take a little bit additional time to resolve some of these issues because of that. And then if for example, a matter was brought by one of the departments and a correction order was issued by the board and still there was no follow-through after a time period, then typically what is done in other communities, it would be referred to legal for further action. And so at that point, I would get involved and coordinate with legal on further action after I received all of the inspection reports from inspectional services, after I received minutes of your meetings where you might have had a discussion about such and such a property, and kind of put it all together into a package and send it off to legal if that's what the town would like to do. Legal can be expensive in terms of tying up resources on there, so it's important to try to all work together to try to resolve these matters, so they don't necessarily have to go that route. But it's reality. Sometimes they will have to go that route, and whether or not you're not getting a response from the landlord or you're not getting a response from whoever owns the property, it can be time consuming, unfortunately. But that was kind of the impetus of this meeting, is to try to identify a best practice or a process so that everybody in town understands that this is the best vehicle to get to where you want to go in terms of your resolving of the property. Obviously, problem properties in town doesn't just necessarily affect the people that may be living there, but it may also affect their neighbors or their abutters that have those concerns. Moving forward, as I mentioned at the selectmen's meeting when Dan was there, the town may want to expand on some of their efforts to address problem properties. And what do I mean by expand? I mean by maybe potentially working on bylaws that need to be beefed up so that enforcements can be a little bit more punitive. Maybe eventually hiring a part-time code enforcement officer for the town that can address these issues. Maybe looking at ways where we could involve code, health, building, and police, and working with our police department on maybe having a quality of life officer to address some of the issues that are trying to be tackled by the town for quality of life issues, going in at all fronts. Those types of nuggets, could potentially be that, or the board may decide, well, we've got a lot going on here. Maybe we just need to focus in on the better communication piece and working within our departments to start, and then learn to grow from there. Our health agent who is on retainer with us. Maybe we need to ramp it up a little bit more with her budget and having her ability to do more for the town, or refer more cases to her. So those are things that the board may want to look at or consider in the future to try to address these issues, because nobody wants to live in squalor, or nobody wants to live next door to a neighbor that doesn't maintain their property, or has an absentee landlord that doesn't live in the area and doesn't care about the town. And so I think this will be a starting point to start the discussion, try to get the communication flowing, trying to understand some of the challenges that some of these departments from the inspectional side face on what they legally can do and legally can't do. And to know that the inspectional team is are the ones that take the courses, right? That have the certifications, that can be responsible to if they needed to go testify in court on a matter, and have the appropriate credentials when it comes to making a determination. And so I think that it's critical to work with our inspectional services team and to continue to try to better communicate between our inspectional services team. And maybe it's maybe we need to ramp up some of our inspectional services team, whether it be more funding or what have you. That is certainly a conversation that we can have at some point. So this was the purpose of the meeting. As to my understanding, maybe there's some other areas that you want to address as well, but we do have with us, obviously, Tricia, Scott, Adam, and Bill, all here. So Chris Jones couldn't make it, our plumbing inspector. He's away on vacation, but he was invited as well.
Okay. What we do have out there through the Board of Health is we've teamed up with the state, and there's iPads coming our way with all the discrepancies for a dwelling, and as opposed to a form, so that then can be sent to everybody out there. We've got Dan's name on it, and Tricia, your name as well, if I'm not mistaken, correct? So if we're going, the Board of Health does have authority out there, whether somebody who has a license to do it, or has all the training to do it, as opposed to maybe somebody that's in the Board of Health and is looking at the financial end or the administrative end more than what's out there in the field. We're doing the best we can to put it all together.
And just a caveat to that, you may want to have or rely on your inspectional team, a little bit more, because if a matter was to come to the board, and they're the ones doing the inspections, okay, and then you guys are the ones that are going to determine what the outcome is. So it could be viewed as unfair if the board is the one that's in charge of the inspection and the outcome, to be quite honestly. And so I think that's kind of what communities have done and modeled in the past, and that may be something that the board should consider to model after.
That's a good point, but the discrepancies are what really, in my opinion, details whether or not that dwelling should be condemned, or what has to be done. Is it just one particular socket? Do I have wires hanging from the ceiling? Do I have plumbing that's leaking? Doorways, how big are the doorways? Do you have to turn sideways to go through them? Those things all are taken into consideration to the board whenever we decide whether or not it's habitable or inhabitable.
Yeah. So we have a building commissioner who's licensed. We have a fire chief who's credentialed. We have a Scott Mansfield, who's a licensed electrical inspector, and we have a licensed health agent. All part of the inspectional services team that are licensed to make those qualified determinations and then bring them to the board for some type of hearing or determination.
So may I make a suggestion? I've received several reports over the past couple months now on 2 or 3 properties. The reports were filled out by somebody that went there, the agent, covering electrical, plumbing, and other stuff. But none of us went and joined for that meeting. None of us did the inspection with that person. Maybe we could have helped even more at the time of the inspection to, I don't know who did them exactly, but there's certain items that they pinpointed for electrical, and they were absolutely correct, but there could have been more. And so what was missed, we don't know. But, when it comes to dangerous properties and hazardous properties, because it's not a hazard to that building, but it's a hazard to the buildings next to it also, and the people in them, I would be more than welcome to join them for the initial inspection review of that property to move it forward to Board of Health. And we'd obviously take care of the electrical portion of it, even if it's being written up by Board of Health. I would also write it up, because if it was done illegally, or if it was just a matter of age, there's 2 different things there. So did somebody just do the work, or is it just because the building's been deteriorating over the past 40 years? So I would suggest that we do more group type inspections, because we haven't really done much of that in the past. So just a thought.
If I could, and I do appreciate that. I have done one house inspection here in town on this current tenure with the board. Adam, did you come? We looked you in at some point, I believe.
Yes.
I don't know if you were able on the first one, but I will certainly reach out to you if I'm.
Yeah.
The other aspect of for our code, 105 CMR 410, it says that we can refer to the other inspectors if there is a challenge. So if you're not able to come with me, I would certainly refer to you
Yep.
if I felt that there was more and that you should look into it.
Sounds great.
And likewise, that's what we've done in the past. I've taken on the role of doing a lot of the in-town inspections, because we had nobody available. And yeah, I'm certified to do that. And I have referred things out to electrical, to plumbing, to fire, and I've also gotten calls back from fire on certain issues. So there's some communication, but there's not a steady path of communication. And that's what we need to get nailed down, so that the communication is there and everybody is involved along the pathway.
So everybody here on the inspectional team has a town email address. And everybody, either through your secretary, Jessica, she can send information to the inspectional team at your request and vice versa. So everybody has a town email address that can be accessible.
And typically, the way it's been going is, if a complaint comes in, it goes to the Board of Health office. And then Jessica will call me and let me know that she's got an issue. And then I'll get back with her to schedule an appointment to go out and look at the property. And then from there, depending on what the issues are, I'll either make recommendations or not make recommendations, depending on what I find at the facility. Okay? When a recommendation is made, though, a recommendation needs to be acted on within a certain time frame, because our requirements have limits on them. When I go in and do an inspection, I give a correction order. It's got X amount of days to correct it. Okay, and by state law, we have X amount of time to extend that and work within the realm of the state regulation. And if it goes beyond that, then we're basically, if we can't respond to an event or an issue then it's deemed on the other side by the tenant, by the landlord, by whoever, as a okay situation. They don't have to comply with anything, which is not, in my ideas, my ideology, a right or process to follow. If we respond within a time frame, then we have control over the situation. If we're outside of that time frame, we don't own anything. We don't have a leg in court if we need to go to court.
So, Mr. Chairman, at what point, so I heard that, you know, Jessica would notify Dan when there's some type of issue or problem or complaint or inspection that needs to be done. At what point does the inspectional team get notified?
As soon as there's enough discrepancies that it goes beyond our jurisdiction.
And typically, when I come back with an inspection sheet, it's all checked off and everything else. If I make a recommendation, there's a box up on the top of the page, it says plumbing, building, fire, whatever else is there. One of those boxes gets checked off accordingly, and then Jessica forwards that to that particular department.
Okay. So has the inspectional team been getting any of those emails?
I've gotten emails as far as review of the properties, but never anything requesting me to. I carry out, when I get a request for that, I find out from an electrician 7, 10, 15 days later that they're pulling a permit for work pursuant to this. So I can't go out and say, okay, well, you need to get an electrician and do this. You know, that's up to the landowner to be the competent person, which they're not always going to be. So I can't say, hey, you need to go get a licensed electrician here, you know. Being here for 17 years, I think I've only received maybe 6 in 17 years complaints.
6 complaints?
That's it,
Wow.
from Board of Health. And 3 of them in the past year, so 6 months to a year. So this board seems to be a little more progressive than in the past, but I've been here for 17 years, maybe 6 total in that 17 years. And that's just me.
We do have issues out there that, again, they're on a timeline event. Once we get involved, we have to work with the calendar so that we can get things addressed in a timely manner. Because once they go beyond that calendar, then if this had to move to a court level, we don't have a leg to stand on. And we've got some pretty nasty properties out there.
You sure do.
Yeah, we do.
An example is, 200 O'Neill Road. That's been an issue since before I came here.
Which property is that?
200 O'Neill Road. Pretty much the owners abandoned the property. Adam called me up there when he went in there, and we basically condemned the place. It needs to be, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure Adam will agree, torn right down to the ground. It's full of trash, debris, rodents living in there. Rodents are affecting the neighbors next door. And the guy has been, notified 4 or 5 times by the sheriff. He lives in Rhode Island. And hasn't responded to anything.
So I just checked my email on 200 O'Neill Road. I got nothing. I've never heard of it, so. I don't know if I need to hear of it,
What was
but it sounds like we would want to remove power and
power, water, everything else should
Yep.
be shut off there. as
and
far as
condemn the
I'm
building.
concerned. Okay, the other thing is, most of these properties I end up going to, they're on the list for non-payment of taxes. 38 Elm Street is another property that's way before I came here, and you go up there right now, and the front porch of the house is literally falling off the house. Okay, and you got holes all around the eaves of the house. Part of the roof on the side porch is already collapsed. There's a swimming pool in the backyard that's filled with black water, rodents living in it, all kinds of insects and everything else coming out of it. Neighbors on both sides complaining. We sent a correction order there, and we get a return back 30 days later, no response, the mail's not even opened up, return to sender. Okay? But yet they haven't paid taxes since they bought the property. So where do we go from here?
Bacon Street is also another problem area. We got a problem up there, that place should be condemned. But for some reason, people see lights on up there, on the third floor.
Where is
That
this?
was in receivership, I believe. I'm sorry to interrupt, but 29 Bacon is one that I started back when
Yeah,
I
it's
was
in-
originally here. We brought it to court. I was there with town council. We did bring it to court. There were multiple attempts there that were made, and I believe after I left in August of 2022, KP Law was able to get receivership. So if there were lights on, then that is the receivership that is working on the property or should be working on it as part of their contract with the courts. So that's out of your hands once it goes into receivership, because that is then under the legal authority of the courts who have agreed to that order.
Trish, I think I worked with you on that one.
Yes.
Yep,
We haven't received any electrical permits for that property, so.
So back when I started with that one, I was trying to go through the building inspector at that point, trying to understand who could get in.
Mhm.
Adam was the only person who responded and was willing to offer assistance with that. So I apologize that
Okay.
our assistant or whomever was in the office at the time didn't reach out.
Mhm.
I did attempt to get as many people involved as possible.
Yeah.
So, could I ask a question to the chairman? So, just going forward, as we're talking about this, and what happened was with the O'Neill Road one, at that point, there was no health agent. And there wasn't anyone in place. I think, Tricia, you had left at that point, and obviously you're back now. We've worked together on a few different things. So, moving forward, in order to keep those lines of communication open, what is the board's protocol, or what do you want the protocol to be? Who are we contacting? I understand there could be an incident where there's not an inspectional agent that the board has. But, so who is the point person if it becomes, in that case, it was a hoarding, terrible Board of Health issue with hoarding and whatnot. But, moving forward, are we are we supposed to call a member of the board? Are we supposed to call Tricia directly? I'm just trying to figure this out, who we are supposed to go through so that we can start that line of communication properly, I guess I'm asking.
So, as the Board of Health, we have jurisdiction to go out there with you. If, for some strange reason, you can't get a hold of one of us, then of course call Tricia. I would start with the Board of Health first.
Don, Mr. Chairman, if I may, customarily, in most communities, it is the health agent that initiates this, and then the health agent would get the call, and then would be dispatched, and then would be brought to the board for action, instead of having, people having to call, well, if I can't reach Don, then I'm gonna reach Jim, if I can't reach Jim, I'm gonna reach Dan, and then most of the time, the board works, for the most part, and, has other commitments, and so that's why we have a health agent,
Point taken, but she works also.
for
So-
us.
For us. Yeah, but you have a full-time job, no? So.
into this, however, I'm here today.
Yes, thank you very much. So I was just thinking that we as the board have that jurisdiction, whether or not we're trying to relate jurisdiction to certifications, where do you go with that? Who's got certifications to be out there to condemn a piece of property, to tell the people you can't live in here anymore? Do we? Yes.
But before you go any further with that, if we do condemn a property, okay, it's on the Board of Health to place those people out of that property to another location.
So at what point in time does the owner then become responsible, or the landlord, to put up
When it's court mandated.
when the court mandates it?
So just to put somebody out of a building, the town's gonna incur the cost of that.
And again, I think that it's critical that these determinations are made by that's why we have a health agent. If we don't have if there's not enough in the budget to cover what we maybe anticipate a long list of problem properties, then that's a discussion that we certainly can have. And you know, this is typically, it goes through her, and then you know, and whatever other department inspectional services, and then they compile a report, then they bring it to you, and you guys make a determination as to how you want to proceed. That's typically how it's done.
And that's how it
That's
should
the
be
legal
done.
way of doing it.
Right, that's the way it should be
person that's
done.
certified or licensed is the enforcement officer. They bring any issues up to the board makes their decision. I'm not sure what the Board of Health's authority is, but the authority comes through the licensed and certified professional. So they're the ones that have to make the determinations, they're the ones that have to do the enforcement letters. That's basically how it works.
I work for 4 other towns, and that's what we do. We deal with the agent deals with the board. And it's a lot less confusion that way. We don't want to have to deal with 4 different people, we want to deal with one person and be consistent. Consistency is everything when it comes in the eye of the law. If you're not consistent, you're not doing something right.
That's the way I would recommend the board handle it moving forward, and would also ensure that the town is protected legally for any potential cases. Now, if there needs to be a discussion that has to happen about, you know, taking on some more, you know, inspections in terms of a budgetary matter, that's certainly, we can certainly get that addressed. But I would encourage that the board follow suit, as mostly a lot of the other communities do, and follow what we just described.
Tricia, I've got problems out there on the food, restaurants and things like that I find overwhelming. You think you could take over all these issues with dwellings as well?
I've done it in other towns.
Yeah, okay.
I've been a generalist in other towns and done a lot of housing and beaches, pools, hotels, you know, all the things that fall under the Board of Health outside of the public health nurse's responsibilities and the Title V. I have done it, and I have done it well for years, so yes, I could offer the same level of service to the town of Warren if that was requested of me.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody got anything else to say? We're gonna have to at our next meeting, we'll discuss what we can do at that point in time. My crystal ball says I'm gonna be up in front of the finance committee here pretty soon.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, we have a special town meeting coming up in November, okay? We certainly have funds that have been allocated, you know, up to this, you know, for a brand-new budget. You know, if we need some additional funds in November, we can certainly ask it at the special.
In November?
November. So, you know, I don't think, you know, even though it's, you know, maybe a little bit of a stumbling block, it's not, that's a small obstacle, what we're looking at here. I think we're in a good position financially, where if we want to do some additional inspections, if the board wants to do some additional inspections, then we can properly budget for those. I think it's critical for the board, in the board's capacity and role, to come up with a list of what they want to see accomplished, and then let the inspectional service team take the initiative and handle some of those concerns or problem properties, or if somebody has a complaint that comes in, that it gets forwarded to the, you know, to the proper channels. So I think with this improved communication, if the board chooses to, you know, follow this setup, I think you will see more successes out there with properties.
I think it's a great idea to put a list together of what we could all put together. Just pick each other's brain and go, yeah, you know, 36 East Street or something like that, just so that we have a list that we can pick on and go, yeah, that's going to need electrical, yes, it's going to need a building inspector, and then take it from there. If we all worked as a team, then we can pull this, I think, together quicker.
Agreed.
Awesome.
there's been a disconnect, and I thank the town of Warren for finally coming up with a professional building inspector. Our past inspector to not do requests when I tell them that somebody's built a building and built this, and it was never any follow-through. So I have several properties that I would like follow-through because I seen them built and no permits.
But
So-
we're with that right now on one particular property where there's an illegal apartment and there's a standing cease and desist order in the file, but yet they're living there.
So I'm aware of that property. And then there's another one just like it, two roads over. So we have two of those I know for sure. And then in the same neighborhood, we got a brand new garage that's been put up in the past 2.5 years. And no permits, no inspections, no nothing. I got emails showing that I sent it to our last building inspector with no response whatsoever. So I'm gonna follow up with that one again. I actually sent that one to the Board of Health. I sent that to the Board of Health as an email. So I do have that, and they were gonna get back to me, but I haven't heard back from anybody yet. So that parcel is now completed, and I don't have the authority to just walk on their property because it's out behind their house.
Right, and that's the problem we have too, like, you know, we don't have the authority to, we have to be invited in, or a complaint has to be issued.
If I could deem it as imminent danger, I would grab the fire department and the police department and I would go up there. But being on a private property, the only danger is to themselves.
Right.
So it's not imminent danger. If they moved the family in there or they did something like that, then I could go up there. But prior to that, I can't. And Bill is just getting settled in now. He's done a fantastic job. And I keep pitching him a couple little ones. Oh, here's this one that I gave to our past building inspector, and that was never done. And so, you know, we're catching up. We're catching up.
And that's pretty much what we're trying to do here is catch up. Okay? We're trying to get it streamlined so that everybody's working on the same page and not against each other or not, you know, we're within the time frames that we need to be within. You know? I came from a much larger town than here, and we had a nice process, and it's the same process that Jim described. Okay, and that's what we need to have here. I shouldn't have to go out and do inspections. Okay, now if Adam calls me for something, it's in my nature because of all my background and my training and everything else I got. I'm gonna go. Okay, just same thing if Tricia calls me, I'm gonna go. Okay,
But you should bring her with you.
yes, but perchance she can't make it, I can fill in for her.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I've got pretty much most of what she has, and then other stuff that she doesn't have. But my whole thing is to get everybody on the same page, in the same building, working together. So,
Chairman, can I ask a question? Just for my notes. So the process, as I understand it now, is if you get a complaint to Jessica, she is supposed to give it to the health inspector?
yes,
Okay.
to Trish.
I just want to make sure that I've got that right.
And likewise, Trish has the authority and the right to call one of us and ask us to go with her to that property. Because there are some properties where, and we've already run into it, where there are belligerent people that will cause problems. So it's better to have two people there than just one.
That's another issue that we're trying to resolve with the townspeople, is that we're not the enemy. We're here to help. We do come across coming in to an establishment like, oh, here they come again. And it's like, you know what, no, we're here to just make sure there were no airborne diseases, no foodborne diseases. We're just trying to make sure that people are safe. But that seems to be a concept that the whole town just don't get just yet.
Yeah, we're not
working
a
on it.
punitive agency. We should be working with people, not trying to punish them for their inconsistencies or their issues, okay? If it comes to that point, then yes, we have a structure in place where we do fine for this. And it does It does have a grading feature where it goes uphill and it finds consistently get steeper and steeper on a daily basis. So there is a process in place, but that's not the go-to. That should be if necessary.
We recently had for the restaurants, a open house that Tricia ran for us, so that the people could understand the application for that food establishment, what has to be done, a grease trap, a utility sink, things like that, to understand what they need to be in order to meet the criteria for a restaurant out there. Some of it has been taken seriously. Some people just don't understand what needs to happen out there in order to have a safe kitchen. But Tricia's doing a great job on putting it all together for us. So I guess the big thing here is to work as a team. Is there any way we should maybe put together emails or a list of properties that are out there to be inspected by any one of you guys or us, Tricia, Dan, to understand, hey, that it'd be really nice if it's more electrical, it's more to the electrical side, as opposed to maybe a building part of it. Any suggestions on something like that? Go ahead.
I think we have all the basic things in place to do the job. If the health department has its own purview as well as all of our departments, and we have some overlapping, but pretty much we all have our own policies or our own codes to follow. The health department, I think, gets called for a lot more life issues, I don't know what to call it, issues, whereas we're called for life safety. So the health department's probably gonna be the first one in a lot of these properties. And I will accept any report from a licensed health inspector that says that there is a structural issue in this property, then I have the right and the ability to investigate that. But up until that point, I don't. I don't just show up in houses without that authority first. And I believe that's what the other inspectors
Right, once
do
we
also.
get our foot in the door, then you guys have access.
But you have to notify us
Right.
officially and with proof. You can't just think it's something wrong. You have to actually say, these stairs are falling off the building. Here's a picture.
Mhm.
That gives me the absolute right to go there and shut the building down. Or the electric box is hanging out, and there's wires everywhere. Here's a picture. That gives Scott the right to go down there and really, take the power off the building.
Mhm.
But until we get into that swing of things, I think we have all the pegs in order. We just need to line them up, get them correctly, We have it. We just need to do it correctly.
And pictures help. Pictures, I think, help tremendously.
Yeah,
So that
we
you
all
can
can-
see.
We all
so
can send
that-
each other, but again, I will not investigate anything unless I have real proof and a written complaint.
And we gotta be
Unless
prepared.
it's a life safety and, immediate danger, then yeah, we'll go right there, But, so I think if we just get in that habit of, she sees something wrong, she's gonna probably be the first one on most of these properties. She sees something wrong, she thinks it's a plumbing issue or whatever, report it to that inspector, give the proof, and then we'll follow up. I plan on following up everything that comes my way. But if it doesn't come my way correctly, I'm not following it up because I don't want to be standing in front of a judge saying, I just showed up, that's why they're suing us. So that's where we gotta be careful, to make sure that the things they are in fact violations and that we handle it correctly.
And just to back up a second, I agree with 100% of what he said, but we, the town, needs to be prepared to cover the cost of
Exactly.
taking somebody out of that building initially.
Yeah.
You will get it back later on,
Get it
but
back.
it's gonna be floating money that we have to pay initially to have them put up in a hotel for
Right.
1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. So we just
Could
gotta
be
be prepared
weeks.
for that.
Could be weeks.
It could be, absolutely. And we cover the costs until legal takes care of it and says the owner owes that, and then you gotta try to fight for them to get that money.
Then you gotta attach the property,
Yep.
and then that's a whole thing, rigmarole. That's why a lot of times this stuff gets pushed aside, because the towns don't wanna put the money up that it takes to do it legally. So, when you have a 3-family and you want to condemn that building, you gotta move 3 families. And so the town's gotta be ready for the financial hit, that that's gonna put on the town.
And if they're not, then it's just not gonna happen.
9 times out of 10, we handle it at a local level.
Mhm.
It gets a little confrontational sometimes, but when we show the codes, the MGLs, whatever we have, and this is what you are responsible for, we are going to cut your power off, we're gonna do this, we're giving you a 10-day repair notice, 9 times out of 10, it happens. And they work with us, and we give them 30 days instead of the 10. We work with them. But on day 31, and nothing happens, then we have to proceed.
So, and then in derelict properties that are abandoned, that's more or less a tax title. If it's a tax title property, then that has to go to tax title. And the town has to be ready to do that. You know, if they don't do it, then we're not going in there to make them clean up a building. They're not gonna show up, they're not gonna answer our letters. So it's a waste of our time to even write a letter. So that's where tax title has to be done and done correctly. And I have no experience on how that's done, but I've seen it done. And then the town gets 3 or 4 properties, they put them all up to auction, they get the money back. So, you know, and that I believe works through the tax collector and the clerk. But again, I have no experience in that outside of I've seen it hasn't been done. So as far as these derelict properties that people have abandoned, if there's not a structural problem, I have no authority. You know, if something's caving in, then yeah, we can condemn the building. But they're not gonna care. It's just a waste of our time. It's already condemned as far as they're concerned. So the only way to really clean it up is to take a tax title and then put the effort into bringing it back online. Because eventually the town's going to get the money when it becomes a tax payable town property again. So
There was
that's
another-
where I think the disconnect on that.
Sorry.
You know?
There is another way for abandoned and blighted properties. There is a program through the Attorney General's office. It has to meet certain criteria, but they will handle that receivership program. I can't remember what they've renamed it, but it.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
It does assist and takes a lot off the towns and relieves that tax title burden.
That's through the Attorney General's office?
Attorney General's
Oh, I'm gonna have
office.
to
Yeah,
research
I
that.
have some-
I got plenty of
I have
properties.
documentation for you.
Yeah, please, I have plenty of properties that can deal with that. So, yeah, I think it's just a better forms of communication. If we get that in place, we're gonna be all set. We just need to follow up on it. We need to do it correctly.
An example of a particular property without pointing out street addresses and everything is we had a fire a year and a half ago in a 4-family house right down the street. That building is still collapsing every day, a little farther, a little farther. The original owner, when the fire happened, sold the property as is. Somebody came in, paid cash for it. So it's been sitting there for a year and a half, almost 2 years now, falling in. It's not protected. Any little kid can walk around there. And it's right here in the backyard of the town hall.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is a playground for kids in the town hall.
I do have an update on that.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. So that's almost 2 years.
So
Who's
the-
responsible for that?
That type of situation, once the fire department and the building department deem it as it's boarded up correctly, we have no more authority over it. Unless it's a safety issue where it's going to fall into the road or fall onto somebody's adjacent property. That property doesn't meet those standards. There's state statutes that give the Board of Selectmen the authority to take over the property or to enforce it. And I believe I provided that to you. So, and then it has to be done through the clerk. So, our purview's done.
Yeah, it was boarded properly.
Unless, of course.
Yeah, but now here, it's still sitting there.
That's, it's
Almost
up
2
to
years.
but the town has no blight zoning, so we can't use zoning to do that.
Is it boarded up? It's not boarded up, is
I
it?
believe
It is, oh, yeah.
It is.
Secured.
It is?
I believe it's secured.
Wow. It looks like it's wide open for when you come down the road anyhow.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe somebody
The
removed
roof
it.
is wide open, but the windows and the doors were secured.
It was boarded up, let's say that. Nobody's checked to see if it
As long
still
as
is.
you can't get access from the first floor, that's considered secure.
Okay.
So, but, you know, other than that, we have no authority to do anything else at this time. But the select board does. Through the clerk.
That's a good answer.
Because I haven't got any complaints for it being a health issue in any shape or form.
No, it's probably not, nobody's living in it, so, there's no health issue. Unless, of course, you know, it's leaching stuff out that's inside the building, and now that's a whole different story.
Right, I was just wondering if they had an oil tank in there that had been drained.
Would be-
What kind of utilities did they have?
Yeah.
Oil, gas, or what, has everything been shut off?
It's got both. Got both.
Both?
No I had the electricity cut immediately.
Yeah, I would imagine
But
that
it
those
has
systems-
gas and has oil in that building. Two sections have gas and 2 sections have oil.
So the oil
Wow.
tank, I mean, if it's leaking, it goes through the fire department to DEP, I believe, right? And then they come in and believe me, if DEP gets involved, no, you know, that property's locked up tight forever, you know, I mean, they're gonna put some serious fines on it. I spoke to the property owner, he said he had plans on rebuilding it, but he had personal personal issues that none of my business said that he couldn't get to it. But again, I have no authority to make him do anything at this time.
So the list needs to be started.
Yes.
Find out how many issue properties we have. And my issues and your issues might not be the same issues, but at least now we're all aware.
Right.
Make an Excel spreadsheet,
Yep,
have check off for everybody.
yep.
And, you know, plumbing, building, electrical, Board of Health, get everybody can check off. I'm aware of it, and these are my conditions. Let's start with that.
We could do a spreadsheet that we all have access to and we can all modify.
Even to let us know what, I didn't mean to interrupt, but even to let us know whether or not it's illegal or what stage it's in.
Exactly.
Who's got the ball and who's running with it?
Make the list and we can start checking stuff off.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so if this is sounding like a great conversation, you know, and again, I would highly recommend that the complaints be channeled through the health inspector in you know, the proper departments, you know, this Excel spreadsheet, you know, is utilized. You know, maybe Jessa could start that for everybody and have access to it and share it with the board as well. You know, and then after all the proper channels have come about, and if the board is still seeing no resolve, and the inspectional team has done several inspections and they're seeing no resolve, then it could come to me, which would then send it to legal. And that would be the last resort.
No, I think that's a good plan. If we don't get satisfaction working with the home property owner, then we can turn it over to legal and they can find the correct way so that if we go to court, they have our back, they know, they're familiar with it.
Now, do you guys have specific timelines for them to meet requirements?
Depends on what the situation is. Every situation is different. So. I mean, we usually give, whenever we issue an order, we usually give a person 30 days to comply. It always gets extended for whatever reasons. And our goal isn't to hurt people, our goal is to get them to fix whatever it is.
Yeah, typically, that's what our goal, is too.
Sure.
But that's our max is 30 days.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the code says, but it's always stretched out.
Yeah.
And then obviously, if there is a need for some type of, you know, condemnation, you know, that is also looked at as a last resort type of thing, you
I mean,
know.
each-
After several discussions have been made, you know, with everybody so that we can prepare for that.
So each department has its own authority for condemning a property.
Mhm.
Mine would be just structural. You know, Scott's would be poor wiring or whatever, hang on. I'm not sure if the fire department actually has that ability, but maybe it does through alarm systems or whatever for any three-family and up. But the health department, I think, has more teeth than any of the departments. Because they cover so much life stuff that we don't, we cover, you know, physical stuff.
We do,
Mhm.
but it's very specific and it's very structured,
Yeah.
and due process is meticulously followed if we do it the right way. Typically, we don't condemn.
Okay.
It's very unusual in my experience
Yeah.
and those of my peers to
Okay.
get to a condemnation.
Yeah.
We could work decades in this field and never condemn.
Yeah, that-
So to have multiple in one town is a curiosity. We do have that, but sometimes it is easier for the other zoning, fire, for the others to get
Yeah.
into that.
Ours are cut and dry, like I said, sterile wiring, not an alarm system that's working on it. That's hanging off the building, and then, you know, egress is problems. And we have a clear reason to do it, you know, whereas yours has a little, you have some finesse that you have to work with.
Those couple properties we're referring to with the 2 and 3 family stuff, none of them need to be condemned in my eyes. They need to be unoccupied
Yes.
because it's a life safety issue for the tenants that are in there.
Mhm.
And that's an issue. And then once that's done, they can be removed of sheetrock and do whatever to inspect, get our licensed electricians in there, licensed plumbers in there, licensed contractors in there, and put back together. It's not a matter of tearing a building down, it's a matter of exposing the hazardous work that was done. Or maybe it's not, we don't know, it was covered up. And the people should not be living in there. So,
People often confuse securing a building and condemning a building.
Mhm.
You know, those are two totally different things. You know, like Maple Street, you know, is an example of securing a building. You know, you wouldn't want to condemn it necessarily right away without giving any options for anything, you know, and that's where I would call the building inspector and say, hey, listen, obviously we have a structural integrity problem, you know, what are your thoughts on this? But if the person is compliant and they secure it in a proper way and protect it, then there's another step, you know, to deal with that. And most of the time, I mean, I can't picture a person in this room that I know that would have any problems working jointly with anyone, you know what I mean? In fact, quite honestly, I prefer doing that, school inspections. I mean, I can't tell you how many inspections I've done with Scott over the years, or, you know, and Tricia, you know, recently in the last couple, you know, it's always better to have multiple eyes on a situation than just one, you know, and I think that just, you know, us generally, you know, talking and finding a line of communication is good, because it usually is the same exact properties that we can name off the top of our heads. And normally, it's because of a non-permitted issue, you know, I mean, that's where generally we have our problems. It's your properties that are done with illegal work that tend to come to the radar faster than anything else. It only takes one person to walk into a situation and realize what's going on, and then it opens the floodgates. But it's not your normal day-to-day stuff. I mean, we do the permit stuff all the time. It's your problem properties that involve illegal, you know, renovations or work.
And a lot of the ones that I've been in recently have had major health concerns. Okay, rodents in the building. Okay, literally feces everywhere. Okay, do I want people living in that? No. Okay,
and as soon as you know about it, it makes us liable. So we have to act, and we have to act strong,
right.
and we gotta be prepared to act strong.
And unfortunately, one of those on the Board of Health list is, if it's bad enough, condemnation.
I'm sorry.
One of those, that is on the Board of Health list as a property that can be condemned if it's bad enough. So
Or at
if you've
least-
got rodent
at least
infestation.
reevaluate it after it's empty.
Right, if you got rodent infestation in there and it's rampant, like, you know, there were a couple of places I went where you couldn't walk through the place without stepping on rodents.
I'm curious why we didn't go through pest elimination rather
We
than going
did.
straight to condemnation. We did?
We did,
Okay.
and it
was not
chose not
successful?
to.
And people are still living there?
Yeah,
The
I
living
hear
there?
a no and I hear yes.
Which one are you talking about?
27,
North?
yeah.
I thought you were talking about different. I didn't know about that portion of that.
See, I've been in that one recently,
I was
up on the
just
second
there
and
the
third
other
floor.
day. Second floor, the second floor is got plumbing issues, standing water in the tubs, standing water in the drains, no hot water. They got hot water feeding 3 apartments off of 1 unit. They've got illegals living in that apartment also that shouldn't be there, but that's a tenancy, that's the landlord's issue, not mine. Okay, plus there's all kinds of other, that's the building that has an illegal apartment on the 3rd floor.
So I've been in that building, and that to me would be a building that could be remodeled.
Yes,
It could be renovated, but you gotta get the people out first,
right,
and it's gotta be set up properly. I couldn't see that building being condemned, but
no,
you gotta get the people out.
but for health
Unsafe.
purposes, I can't,
Unsafe for sure.
okay?
Yep. But on my end, electrical, I had an electrician pull a permit. He went in and did a whole bunch of work. Shoddy work, I made him fix it, re-inspections. But they did what we needed to do and it finally passed. So,
Mhm.
Have you inspected 24 North Street by any
I'm sorry?
chance? Have you inspected 24 North Street by any chance?
24, is that the brick building?
It's a brick building across the street
No.
from it, and then the one right next
Haven't
door
been
is
there at all.
18.
Heard rumors there was somebody in there working, but I haven't seen any permits yet.
There was, we stopped the people from
Heat,
working
electric
in there.
heat. Yes, we got a permit for electric heat, that was it. though.
That was 27.
Okay.
That was 27. When I went in there for an inspection, they had installed electric baseboard heating, the single units
Okay.
throughout the entire
So 24
second
now.
floor. 24 was, everybody was complaining about breakers being undersized for each apartment.
10 years ago, 9 or 10, we went to that building. They were doing work on a primary access in the back, staircase. Somebody was renovating an apartment on the second floor. We got permits, we got completion, but the place was still, it needed more.
It needs a lot more.
But that was like 10 years ago, so that person was caught doing electrical work without permits, fined a
Yep.
double fee,
And we-
made to remove the walls like anybody else would. So my Mass General law is very clear, you do electrical work without a permit inspections, you tear the sheetrock off. You give me my inspection process, you fix whatever could be wrong, and you put your sheetrock back up. So Mass General law for me is very simple, and I don't care if it's, the homeowner or if
Right.
it's the tenant doing the work.
Right,
I
and the
follow
landlord, who's an
consistency.
absentee landlord, hired a contractor who really wasn't a contractor, everybody knows who he is, but,
Yep.
and here he is pulling electrical in the building.
That was just recently.
Yes.
Yeah, I shut him down and don't have anything as of yet. I disallowed his permit.
So now there's another management firm involved.
I talked to one other person, then he decided he wasn't going to do the work. That was about 3 months ago, a reputable contractor from the town of Warren.
Yep.
Very good person, very honest, very fair, but he told me he decided he's not gonna get involved with that owner.
Mhm.
So I still have not heard from anybody since then,
And
so if
then
you
the
know of
other-
anybody doing it, let me know.
The other management company is from Rutland. They just stepped into the picture, and they're making all the necessary repairs for windows. Because literally, the windows would fall right out of the building when you go to open it up. So they've ordered new windows, installed some of them. There's still a couple of special sizes that are on back order that they got to deal with. Cleaned up a couple of the apartments. They made front entryway off the front door. You couldn't open the front door because it was just so destroyed, and the door was bigger than the frame was. Okay? So they replaced the whole front door. And then in the hallway was all mold. So they had to go all the way from the basement all the way up to the third floor, clean off all the mold, on every door going into each apartment, mold on all the doors. So replaced all those doors.
Is that where everybody was wearing oxygen masks?
Yes.
So just so you know, I would shut the job down and give them a 10-day disconnect order or comply with permitting.
Mhm.
But before I allow a permit for electrical, I would mandate they get a building permit prior to electrical permit. I won't issue the building, electrical permit without the building permit.
Right.
Because he's ultimate with a multifamily or any structure. I wanna see his permit first, then I'll allow
Mhm.
electrical.
Yep. And it should be, that's typically the way I'm used to seeing it work. Building permit, and then everybody follows that and signs off on the permit, and the permit should be posted
Mhm.
at the property.
I usually go in there ahead of time though, and I'm usually the person that says, this power will be disconnected within so many days. And I do that in writing and I send it certified.
Mhm. So,
I'm pretty sure we could go on all day about pieces of property that we've got out there. So let's put that spreadsheet together,
Mhm.
and I think that we should get together once every 6 weeks or something like that.
If
This
not
has
by
been
email, but
this
at
has
least-
been great.
Yeah, and if we can't get together, maybe we can just do a Zoom.
Or a Zoom.
So we typically would have a clerk for the building trades, who would take care of a lot of our communications for us.
Mhm.
We don't have that right now. So now not only doing inspections and processing permits and cashing checks and turnovers, but now we're doing the clerk's job.
Yep.
So our clerk would typically, we would talk to our clerk would talk to her, back and forth, and we'd keep that communication consistency. Hopefully soon, we're gonna have an eligible person for that clerk's job, and it'll take some of our stress off us. Because it's a lot of work,
I know
that
it
clerk
is.
part.
Lot of
And-
paperwork.
yeah, a lot of work.
It's a lot for me too to go out there and do the inspections on each individual facility that we get complaints on, and then come back here and try to make a decision as to how
Write it
we're
all
gonna
up.
handle it.
Yeah, so give us a little,
Yeah.
bear with us,
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying, we're working, most important is get our inspections done first, and then we do our turnovers, and then we do our paperwork and
Right.
sort of stuff.
I just want us all to work together, that's all.
Yep. Do you agree with that?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
Communication.
Gentlemen, I got another appointment at 2:00. I gotta fly. I'm going to adjourn the meeting, unless somebody's got anything else to say. Everybody
One thing,
else, go
who's
ahead.
gonna start this Excel spreadsheet? Who's gonna get it going?
Jessica is our office.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
The only other one thing I want to add about the spreadsheet is to make sure it gets updated by each department weekly or on a schedule.
I don't think I can do weekly, but.
Once they get a clerk, it
Or
will.
whenever.
When you get a clerk, we'll be able to.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
biggest
right
thing,
now it
making
should be
sure
updated,
it's,
if you make changes to it, or the changes are
Yeah.
additions or subtractions, then that should be updated then.
The initial setup, I think we should do quickly,
Yes.
as quick as we can.
Yeah.
Get the initial 15, 16 property issues, and then go from there.
Yeah, I'll have her on that next week.
Sounds great.
She's out for the rest of the week.
Thanks, Dan. And thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a
Jim,
motion.
appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great day, everybody.
Thank you.